Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, Story 36.
We're examining a story simply titled Yama, which refers to the king of hell.
It's just a phenomenal piece of literature to analyze because, well, it operates as a Trojan horse.
Oh,
Like on the surface, the author Pu Songling, he presents you with this local, slightly quirky ghost story. But underneath that narrative layer, he's delivering this razor-sharp commentary on, the nature of justice.
yeah, the grinding reality of earthly administration.
Exactly. And a deeply unsettling psychological truth about human suffering.
So our mission today is to basically pull all of those layers apart. We're going to examine a secretive double life, the incredibly mundane inner workings of underworld bureaucracy, and this thousands of years old cold case involving one of the most notoriously violent historical figures to ever live.
It's a wild ride.
It really is. And by the end of it, we're going to arrive at a genuinely chilling philosophy on what true punishment actually looks like. Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the deeply unusual man at the center of the story.
Right, because before we can make sense of the bizarre court case this text builds toward, we really have to understand the psychological profile of the judge who's presiding over it.
Yeah, so the text introduces us to a man named Li Zhengji, and he holds the title of a shukai from a place called Laiwu.
And understanding that specific title is crucial for the listener here. Your shukai was someone who had passed the very first, the lowest level of the imperial civil service examinations.
Which were notoriously grueling, right?
Oh, unbelievably grueling.
Yeah.
Passing meant you were a recognized scholar, certified intellectual.
Yeah.
But being only a shukai meant you were still at the absolute bottom rung of the official ladder.
So you had the credentials, but rarely the power or the wealth.
Exactly. You're basically entry-level management, but with a fancy degree.
That immediately paints a picture of a guy who is highly competent, but perhaps professionally stalled. And the author gives us a very precise character profile to explain why he might be stalled.
Yeah, Lee is described as relentlessly straightforward.
Right, he's forgiving, but crucially, he absolutely refuses to flatter or pander or, play political games with anyone. He is morally rigid.
And that rigid moral compass on the inside is paired with this physical routine on the outside that is utterly terrifying to his family and his neighbors.
I mean, you can't really blame them.
Not at all. Every few days, Li Zhengji enters a state of what appears to be clinical death. His body becomes entirely stiff.
He just lies there like a rigid corpse for 3 to 4 solid days at a time before suddenly jolting awake and just returning to normal.
The physical toll of that is unimaginable.
Unimaginable. And yet the most striking detail isn't the coma itself, but his behavior afterward. When his terrified family naturally begs to know where he went or what he saw during those 4 days of rigidity,
He gives them absolutely nothing.
nothing. He treats his supernatural absence as highly classified information. It feels very similar to a government employee with top-tier security clearance. You ask them how their day was and they just give you a blank stare and say, "Oh, I reviewed some documents."
Yeah, he views his otherworldly excursions purely as administrative duty. But we really have to look at the why behind the author's choices here.
Right.
Why does the text emphasize that a low-level scholar who refuses to flatter people is the one experiencing this?
Oh, because of the historical context, right.
Exactly. Because during the time this was written, which is the transition between the Ming and Qing dynasties, earthly bureaucracy was often just plagued by extreme corruption, bribery, and, sycophancy.
Right. Kissing the ring.
Precisely. By making Lei the protagonist, the author is suggesting that the qualities that hold you back in the corrupt earthly realm, like refusing to kiss the ring, are the exact qualities that make you qualified to administer justice in the afterlife.
See, I have to admit some confusion on that point, though.
How so?
Well, in a lot of Western and even broader Eastern mythologies, the ruler of the underworld is usually this supreme, terrifying cosmic deity, right? Like a Hades or some ancient demonic god.
Right.
So why is the king of hell in this story just a low-level, hyper-local scholar from Laiwu? It feels strangely, small scale.
That is a fundamental aspect of Chinese folklore from this period, actually.
Mhm.
The underworld is often envisioned not as a chaotic realm of fire and demons, but as a direct mirror of the earthly imperial bureaucracy.
Oh, wow. So it's just as mundane.
Very mundane,
Yeah.
highly localized and structured.
Mm.
You don't face a supreme cosmic god when you die. You face a magistrate.
Yeah.
You face clerks, paperwork, tribunals.
So the fantasy being presented here is that while the living courts are run by the corrupt, the courts of the dead are run by the stubborn, incorruptible local guys who actually care about the law.
Exactly.
That makes perfect sense. Hell isn't a fiery pit, it's just a strictly managed DMV that actually functions.
That's a great way to put it.
But, Lai's absolute refusal to speak creates a massive narrative problem for the author. If the protagonist treats his underworld job like a black site and refuses to confirm anything, how does the reader or the town actually find out what he's doing?
Well, the author solves that problem by introducing the ultimate foil.
Oh, yes.
Every secretive, incorruptible boss inevitably has a subordinate with a big mouth.
Which brings us to Scholar Zhang.
Yes, Zhang.
Zhang is from the exact same town as Li, and by what appears to be a bizarre coincidence, Zhang also falls into these multi-day corpse-like comas.
But his personality is the polar opposite of Li's.
Right. Where Li is silent, Zhang is a relentless gossip. He freely volunteers highly sensitive underworld information to anyone in town who will listen.
Just completely spilling all the secrets.
He drops the bombshell that Li Zongzi is actually Yama, the king of hell, and that Zhang commutes to the underworld alongside him as his deputy official.
And we have to consider how the townspeople would react to a claim of that magnitude. I mean, the text anticipates the natural skepticism of the villagers.
Yeah.
Zhang knows he sounds like a lunatic.
Oh, for sure.
So he provides verifiable proof.
He brings the receipts. The text notes that Zhang recites the exact couplets, like the poetic inscriptions written on the massive doors of the underworld hall.
Right.
He effectively tells the town, look, if you don't believe me, the left door says this, the right door says that, go ask Li. Knowing full well, of course, that Li won't say a single word to confirm or deny it.
It's such a clever trap.
It really is. It's fascinating how petty this dynamic is, though. Like, Zhang's behavior sounds less like mythological folklore and more like an insecure middle manager trying to prove he's in the inner circle.
Yeah, definitely.
He goes to the highly confidential leadership meeting and then immediately posts a vague brag on his social media about making hard decisions with the executive team.
What's fascinating here is how the author deliberately maps mundane office politics onto the afterlife to ground the story.
Yeah.
The character with genuine, immense power lead feels zero need to validate his position to the mortals around him. The work itself is all that matters.
But Zhang is lower on the totem pole.
Right. He is clearly insecure about his status, both on Earth and in Hell. He needs the external validation of his neighbors knowing how important his secret job is.
So he leaks classified information purely to boost his own ego.
Exactly. It's the ultimate local clout chasing.
But narratively, Zhang's loose lips serve a crucial purpose. Now that the townspeople know these two men are actively running the local branch of Hell, they naturally want to know what the caseload looks like.
And they ask Zhang directly. They want the juicy details of what happened during yesterday's shift in the underworld.
Of course they do.
Zhang plays it somewhat coy, probably remembering he's violating a cosmic non-disclosure agreement, but he leaks one specific, highly significant event.
And what's that?
He tells the villagers that yesterday they brought up Cao Cao for interrogation and gave him 20 lashes with a whip.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the mention of Cao Cao shifts the scale of this story entirely.
It totally changes the stakes.
For the listener who might not be steeped in Chinese history, we really have to establish just how massive this name drop is. Cao Cao isn't just some local criminal.
Not at all. Cao Cao is a towering figure from the end of the Han Dynasty, living over 1,000 years before the story was written.
1,000 years.
Yeah. He was a brilliant military strategist, a chancellor, and a ruthless warlord whose campaigns resulted in the deaths of millions.
Millions.
Over the centuries, through historical texts and popular literature like The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Cao Cao became cemented in the cultural consciousness as the ultimate archetypal villain.
He is synonymous with cunning, deceit, and almost incomprehensible bloodshed.
Exactly.
Knowing that context makes the punishment Zhang describes feel, honestly, completely absurd. We're talking about a warlord whose historical reputation is drenched in the blood of millions, and the king of hell brings him in for 20 lashes with a whip.
It sounds ridiculous, right?
It sounds like a middle school detention. It feels like a clerical error. Why would a legendary villain receive such a minor physical slap on the wrist?
Well, that disparity is exactly what the author wants you to notice.
Yeah.
It implies something deeply unsettling about how bureaucratic justice operates compared to poetic justice.
Okay.
The moderation of just 20 lashes
Mm-hmm.
suggests that the bureaucracy of hell isn't actually interested in sudden explosive vengeance. They aren't throwing him into a volcano for a grand spectacle.
Right.
Instead, they're slowly, methodically chipping away at a sentence that is so vast it borders on infinity.
It's not even like paying off a massive debt with pennies because a debt eventually ends. It's more like being stuck in a perpetual audit where the IRS just fines you $5 every single day for eternity.
That's a perfect analogy.
The bureaucracy reduces this terrifying mythical warlord to just another mundane file in Li Zongzi's never-ending stack of paperwork. You can just imagine the schedule: Tuesday at 2 p.m., whip Cao Cao 20 times. Tuesday at 3 p.m., review the underworld infrastructure budget.
It completely strips Cao Cao of all his terrifying grandeur.
Yeah.
And this realization, triggered by those petty 20 lashes, it causes a massive structural shift in the text itself.
Right.
We pull out of the local town gossip entirely.
Right, the narrative voice changes.
Yes, the author steps directly into the text under the persona of the historian of the strange.
The historian essentially breaks the fourth wall of the ghost story to offer this philosophical meta-commentary on the anecdote we just heard.
And the historian immediately addresses the massive disparity we just talked about. To further strip away the villain's legendary status, the historian refers to Cao Cao by his childhood name, a man.
Oh man, that's such a remarkably subtle way of shrinking him down to human size.
It really is. The historian points out a logistical nightmare regarding a man's case. Because Cao Cao lived over a millennium ago, and yet his trial is still ongoing, this single case has likely been passed down through dozens, perhaps hundreds of different yamas.
Oh, wow. So Li Zongzi is just the latest middle manager in a centuries-long line of judges tasked with processing this one man's crimes.
Exactly.
And the historian explicitly lists the ultimate apocalyptic punishments that the underworld holds in its arsenal. Like, it's not like the 20 lashes are the only tool they have.
Far from it.
The text mentions the animal realm, meaning the soul is condemned to be reincarnated as a lower beast. And even more brutal, it mentions the Mountain of Swords, which is exactly the heavy metal, agonizing torture imagery you'd expect from a mythical hell.
This raises an important question, which the historian poses directly to the reader. The guilt of Cao Cao is an established historical fact. It requires no further investigation.
Right, everybody knows he did it.
Furthermore, all of these ultimate annihilating tortures, the animal realm, the Mountain of Swords, they are readily available to Li Zongzi and the judges before him.
So why, for thousands of years, has this case remained undecided? Why the endless string of minor interrogations and petty whippings?
It's the central mystery of the text.
I found myself genuinely wrestling with that question while reading the sources. Like, if you have a mountain of swords at your disposal, why bother with a whip? It seems incredibly inefficient for a bureaucracy that prides itself on strict order. Why hold back the absolute worst, most final punishment for a man who undeniably deserves it? It just feels like the justice system is failing.
Well, it only looks like a failure if you misunderstand the ultimate goal of the punishment. The historian doesn't just leave us hanging with the question. He provides an answer that completely upends our understanding of what constitutes true torture.
The text introduces the concept of the speedy cutting or the quick decapitation.
Yes.
The historian argues that a condemned prisoner, no matter how terrified they are of dying, ultimately finds a dark comfort in the final execution.
Because when the axe finally falls, the crushing weight of anxiety just evaporates.
Exactly. The pain is severe, but it is brief, and more importantly, it is final.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the historian is making a profound statement on the human psyche here. The true goal of the underworld's justice system isn't physical pain.
Because if physical pain were the objective, they would have thrown Cao Cao on the Mountain of Swords 1,000 years ago.
Exactly. The ultimate punishment is to actively deny the prisoner that final resolution. It is to trap them in a state where they are constantly begging for the finality of death, while being structurally unable to ever achieve it.
It is the weaponization of bureaucratic limbo.
Yes.
To put it in a modern, everyday context for you, imagine being on hold with a massive, faceless customer service hotline, say the tax authority or a massive medical insurer.
A nightmare already.
Right. And you know a crushing, life-altering penalty is hanging over your head. You know you are guilty. You just sit there sweating, waiting for the hammer to drop.
The anticipation is killing you.
Exactly. And finally, the representative picks up the phone, gives you a minor paper cut of a penalty, like a tiny late fee, and then immediately puts you back on hold. Please continue to hold. Your punishment is important to us.
That's horrifying. But that's exactly it. The dread of anticipation becomes the actual sentence. The underworld intentionally delays the final apocalyptic sentence so that Cao Cao is forced to suffer the psychological terror of the Mountain of Swords every single day for over a millennium.
Without ever being granted the release of actually experiencing it.
Precisely. The anticipation of the pain is infinitely worse and vastly more enduring than the pain itself.
The text concludes with the historian simply exclaiming, "How strange." But it isn't just strange, it is a masterclass in psychological horror. By never finishing the paperwork, Li Zhangji and the Yamas before him have constructed a hell that exists entirely in the victim's own mind.